Good evening. Welcome to the Mob Museum. My name is Jeff Schumacher. I'm the Vice President of Exhibits and Programs here. This is actually our second public program of the new year, but the first one in the courtroom. So thank you all for coming. It's a great turnout, and we really appreciate everyone taking the time to come out during the week. Our focus tonight is on undercover agents. This is a fascinating topic because it encompasses all of the most intense human traits and emotions. Heavy doses of fear and anxiety, of course, but also plenty of bravery, cunning, gamesmanship, and downright treachery. We'll hear some of that tonight, I'm sure. Undercover work is both dangerous and rewarding, and our speakers tonight will attest to this, I'm sure. In the end, there's no question that the work of undercover agents has played a huge role in taking down some of the most powerful organized crime groups in the country. It's become an essential tool in law enforcement's arsenal. Perhaps the most famous undercover agent of all time, Joe Pistone, originally was, yeah, sure. Joe was originally scheduled to participate in tonight's program, as some of you know. Unfortunately, because of a family matter, Joe was not able to come. Joe expressed his regrets and indicated he would like to come back to the Mob Museum sometime in the future, so we'll be working on that, so watch for that. In the meantime, we have a wonderful group of undercover agents here, former undercover agents, each of whom worked for a different federal law enforcement agency. I'll briefly introduce them. And then each of them will talk for 15 minutes or so about their undercover experiences. After that, I'll ask them a few questions before we open it up for questions from you, from the audience. Two of our speakers also have books that they'll be able to sign for you after the program. And I can assure you that we will touch on some really good material tonight, but the books will add to your knowledge significantly. There's no way we can cover everything. All right, so I want to briefly introduce each of our panelists, and then we'll dive into it. To my left is Herman Groman. Herman is a retired FBI special agent who specialized in deep, long-term undercover operations in the areas of organized crime and narcotics. His biggest undercover operations occurred in Detroit and in Las Vegas. Herman also served as the agent in charge of several high-profile public corruption investigations. Later, he worked as a team leader of an FBI special operations group that conducted surveillances of major terrorist cells and their associates throughout the United States. Before joining the FBI, Herm served in the infantry in Vietnam and was awarded the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star for valor. Please welcome Herman Groman. Next to Herman is Eddie Follis. Over his 27-year career with the DEA, Eddie was an undercover agent targeting not just drug traffickers, but also their connections to international tourism. Tourism. That's not the first time I've done that. I feel like it's like a Las Vegas thing. International terrorism. Operating across 5 continents, Follis infiltrated organizations linked to Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, and various international cartels. His work marked a crucial shift in DEA operations, moving from street-level drug busts to complex international investigations targeting the intersection of drug trafficking and terrorism financing. His undercover operations occurred in some of the world's most dangerous regions. Please welcome Eddie Follis. On the far left is Billy Queen. Retired ATF agent William Queen spent 28 months undercover with the notoriously violent Mongols motorcycle gang, becoming the first law enforcement agent to fully infiltrate the organization. As Billy St. John, Queen rose through the ranks to become chapter treasurer, while gathering evidence of the gang's criminal activities. His immersion was so complete that the lines between his true identity and his undercover persona began to blur, especially as he formed genuine bonds with gang members who would have killed him if they had discovered his true identity. Queen's operation led to the arrests and convictions of numerous gang members and provided unprecedented insights into outlaw motorcycle gang operations. Please welcome Billy Queen. All right, so we're gonna start, as I mentioned, with each of our speakers talking at some length about their experiences and working undercover, and then the first we'll start with Herm. So go ahead, Herm. It's all yours.
No.
Is that a tactic?
No, I'm not going to do it. Wow, nice crowd. Yeah, good crowd. So, I guess, when I talked with Jeff about this, he'd mentioned that he kind of wanted to get into the mind of undercover agents as we're going through the process. And I go way back, before I even came into the FBI, I had worked some light undercover with law enforcement in Ohio, and I was in an organized crime group with the Attorney General's office in Ohio. And our mission was essentially to try to infiltrate bookmaking operations, gambling operations, low-level organized crime groups, and so forth. And so that's kind of where I cut my teeth undercover. In these operations, you had an undercover vehicle, you had an undercover driver's license, and then you had an undercover story in your mind. That's about as deep as it went. And usually that worked because you weren't trying to infiltrate the Mafia to become part of their group. You were simply trying to develop a case where you could get a search warrant, arrest these people, and take it from there. So it was light undercover work. So when I came into the Bureau, Mr. Hoover had only been gone about 8 years. And so in 1980, the Bureau was still very much Mr. Hoover's Bureau. And so undercover in the Bureau, it just really didn't exist to any real extent. And I enjoyed undercover. I mean, it's, I found that I was good at it, and I developed some techniques. And so we go to what we like, right? So, but when I came into the Bureau, there really wasn't much going on in that area. I was assigned to Pittsburgh, my first office. And sure enough, I think this would never happen today. There's a real strict curriculum in recruiting of undercover agents and so forth, but that didn't exist back in those days. Later on, of course, I got involved in the FBI Academy at Quantico, actually helping mentor would-be undercover agents and so forth during their training process. But back then, that didn't exist. So I started to I started with one of the agents who had a big interstate gambling case, and I explained to him my background, and he said, well, why don't you try to hit some of these bookies and we'll see what happens. That led to a complete infiltration of me running an undercover nightclub. We had the gambling operation in the background. We were paying off the local sheriff, and we were running this operation. And I'm fairly new. I'm basically a new agent. And we had a new assistant special agent in charge. His name was Tony Daniels, who later became one of the assistant directors. And he was in charge of, he became in charge ultimately of running FBI operations at our training center in Quantico. But back then he'd just gotten this new position. And I remember he came to me and he said, listen, you're a new guy, and this is all new territory for us, and but we have an operation ongoing down in Clearwater, Florida. And everything that you're going to experience dealing with these bad guys and these wide guys and being extorted and whatever, these guys have already experienced it. In fact, they've been undercover for about 4 years now. So he said, I want you to go down to Florida and hook up with this guy by the name of Joe Pistone. I had no idea, so I get on a plane, I go down there, I go to this nightclub they've got, they show me around. I have absolutely nothing to do with it operationally, but I was observing. So if you see the movie, I'm the guy with the broom, kind of standing in the back. But I had no real, and so I came away from that thinking, okay, well, it's nice. I mean, these guys are involved with some gangsters, and they gave me a few tips. But I really didn't understand the scope and the depth of what that operation ultimately led to. And so that's kind of where I met Joe Pistone. That's kind of where I cut my teeth in the Bureau. And then ultimately, I got assigned to Detroit and worked a lot of major organized crime cases there. And I started to really develop my undercover persona. It takes years to do that. And ultimately, by the time I got to Las Vegas, years later, my name was Sonny Blake. And so why did I choose that name? Well, there's a lot of techniques, and these guys can explain it to you as well, that you develop. First of all, if you're sitting with a bunch of guys, you want to either use your first name if it's common, because if they say, hey, Joe, and your real name is Bob, you're not going to respond to it. So when I grew up, my name was Sonny, so I became Sonny. And I also like that nickname because it didn't give away a lot. If somebody really wanted to do a detailed background investigation, all they really had it was Sonny. That guy's Sonny, you know him. So we ultimately, while I was in Detroit, they had a huge undercover operation that they wanted to develop against corrupt police officers in Cleveland. And it centered around some of these corrupt police officers shaking down illegal gambling operations. So I kind of had that background, so I went down there and hooked up with another undercover agent who ultimately really kind of ran the operation. I was kind of a part-timer, but we opened up a gambling operation. And how many crap players we got in here? Anybody play crap? Yeah, crap. It's one thing, there's a lot going on at a crap game, right? I mean, you're paying, you got this and this 6 to 8, and you got this thing over here 3 to 5 and 2 to 1, and there's 10 and 15 guys. So it's one thing to play the game. It's another thing to learn it. So, so I had to learn how to deal with the game. And eventually I went down to Quantico. They had a little training session with us. But the only way you can really learn this stuff is to actually do it. And so I remember when the first night we had this thing going, we had the corrupt police officers that we paid off to make sure we didn't get raided. And we had a big crowd, and there were some wise guys from the Cleveland mob kind of coming in. And so things were really working well. And so I'm thinking the house always wins on these games, right? So I'm playing this thing, and we're doing it. That night, we count up the chips, and we lost $12,000. So I meet with the case agent, and he's like, what the hell happened? I'm going, I don't know, we paid them off, I don't know. I said, it'll be better eventually, because the odds will eventually play in their favor. The next week we did the same thing. We lost $8,500. We're getting better. So the case agent calls the experts from Quantico. They do the gambling analysis unit. So they come in and they explain to us. They said, okay, what are you guys doing? I said, let's just set up a table and we'll play. And he said, okay, you're kind of paying off, right? And I said, I'll tell you what, you guys come into the game tonight and you watch us and you see if somebody's introducing bad dice or somebody's skimming some chips or, whatever. I said, but don't do anything too fancy. We're not that good yet. He said, okay. So I bring the two experts in. So they're playing and they're kind of watching, looking around and doing this stuff, and everybody's throwing dice and yelling, screaming. I got the corrupt cops. I paid them off. It's going great. So we tally things up. That night we lost $11,000. So we have a big meeting the next day. I said, but you guys were there. What'd you see? You guys are the experts. They said, well, after we reviewed the tapes, we carefully observed everything that everybody was doing. There was no bad dice introduced. And our final analysis is, you two guys are the most unlucky bastards we've ever met. That was it. So that brought me to Las Vegas, where I'll get into it. We're running a little short, so I'll make it quick.
No, you got a couple minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. So when I get to Las Vegas, I still have this undercover persona. It gets transferred here, and they want to start up an undercover operation, and I'm the guy. So ultimately, what happened is they had a mob associate from New York, from Mulberry Street, and his name was Tony. They called him Fat Tony. Everybody got to have a Fat Tony. This guy weighed about 500 pounds. And he was very New York. How you doing? I had you guys didn't know you were going to be entertained, did you? So I had a Jaguar, a little Jaguar, and so I met him for the first time, and I see him lumbering on, and I'm thinking, he'll never get in that car. No way. So I put the top down on the car. Gets in it. We're going down Boulder Highway, and the car is going like this. The cops pull us over. You okay? I'm going, yeah, I got Fat Tony. You know. He was the best informant. He was the worst informant. He was so hard to work with. And these guys will get into it. Part of the problem with working with informants is you're only, at least initially, you're only as good as your informant. If your informant doesn't have credibility, you don't have credibility. They're going to be saying, what's that guy Sonny doing? He seems like a sharp kid. He's hanging around with this douchebag? What's up with that? So Tony had his moments, but he's high maintenance. Ultimately, what happened is Tony started reaching out through his contacts and so forth. And the Milano crime family out of Southern California eventually came to Las Vegas, and I think they were going to try to make some inroads. And the underboss, Herman Milano, actually came. And he recruited a couple of his guys, and they're kind of looking for opportunities. But Las Vegas, very difficult for the mob to get involved like they used to be back in the 60s and so forth. It's so highly regulated. So they were involved in, thefts and breaking and enterings and just any kind of fraud that they could come up with. And I was right there at the middle of it. And so one of the things that they wanted, the Bureau wanted me to try to do is there were a lot of thefts that were taking place at the convention center. It involved some Teamsters. Any Teamsters? You got a piece? Anyway, so and when they tear down these big conventions, electronic conventions or whatever, that's all insured. And a lot of times that stuff just disappears. It's very valuable. So I ended up buying a truckload of shirts from a big clothing convention they had. I had every kind of shirt that I had silk shirts, leather shirts, pink shirts, green shirts. I had shirts, everything. And I put them in a warehouse. And so I get a call one day from a guy by the name of Caruso, who was part of Milano's crew. And he said, hey, we want to talk to you. Can you meet us up at our club? We had a little club, and we had it, the FBI did, we had it all wired up with sight and sound, with microphones and hidden cameras and so forth. And I said, oh yeah, this is great. So I get up there, and I see Carmen Milano sitting in the corner. And I knew who he was. It was the underboss. I mean, that's unbelievable that I'm in a situation like this and I see the underboss of the Milano crime family there. And I knew who he was. So this guy Caruso says, listen, you know that guy that put that deal together for you at the convention? I said, yeah. He says, he's our guy. He wasn't, but that's what they were saying. He said, and we know about the big load of shirts that you got out of there, and we figured that you could probably get about 30, 40,000 out of it. And since he's our guy, you owe us 50%. And I'm going, but this is perfect. This is what I wanted to happen, right? I wanted to be extorted by these gang members. So there I am. I'm right there in the middle of it. And because I'm undercover, I had a big pocket full of money. And I said, well, I don't know. I can't get 40,000, maybe get 30,000, maybe, and I'm dickering with them. And I had $3,000 in my pocket. And I said, you know what? I agree. You know, if he's your guy, you know, we have to work this through. And he says, every time that we do a deal at that convention center, you got to pay us. It's perfect. Bingo. And it's all on tape. And so I look over at Carmen Milano, and he's nodding like this, not saying a word. And so I take out the $3,000. I said, I'll just pay you now. He says, you got the money? I said, yeah. And he looks at me. I said, how's that, Mr. Milano? And he's shocked. He said, how do you know my name? So I blamed it on Fat Tony. I go, Fat Tony told me. So now I'm in with him. I made payments, direct payments to an underboss. I'm golden. And they think that I'm just some drug dealer, former drug dealer from Detroit, had a lot of money. I was going through a divorce. I was trying to hide it from my ex-wife and so forth and et cetera. And so it worked great. So I worked my way through it, but I think you wanted to get into some other stuff.
Yeah,
do we have
absolutely.
time for that or not?
We should know, one quick note on your story about infiltrating the mob in Las Vegas is this was happening post Tony Spilatro. This
That's
is
right.
in the late 80s, early 90s. The mob was, in some people's minds, going away by then in Las Vegas, but Herm's story tells you otherwise. They were still hanging around, still trying to do stuff here at that time. All right, so we're going to transition for now to Eddie. And Eddie we have a PowerPoint, we have a video as part of his presentation. So Eddie, you want to kick it off? You want to start with the video?
Please.
All right, we're going to start with the video.
Should I get out of the way? No, over here.
Nope, you're good.
Be who you are and sell that person, not a make-believe guy. Because they don't want a make-believe guy. Right. They want what's here and here and money in their pocket. My name is Eddie Follis, and for practically 3 decades I've worked as an undercover agent for the United States government, and in particular, the United States Marine Corps and the Drug Enforcement Administration.
As an undercover agent, Eddie Follis put his life on the line countless times to take down what the U.S. government called some of the world's most nefarious drug barons, embedding himself in places like Egypt, Lebanon, Israel, and Pakistan.
I would apply for every place that nobody else wanted to go, and where the sources of supply for the various types of drugs were produced and distributed. I just made my mind up. I said, I don't care what happens now. I don't care where my life takes me. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to make this mandate on my life. I will do it. And then it was just like no course correction. It just happened.
In other words, go big or go home, which is where Eddie started, in California.
The first large case that I assembled was the Sam Essel case in Los Angeles when I was a lad.
I mean, he thinks I am his partner, his real partner, like brother. And he's told me at times that he values me more than his own brother.
Essel worked as a Nigerian drug trafficker who owned several legit businesses and laundered money through them.
The next larger case that I worked on was the Amado Carrillo Fuentes case from Narcos fame.
Welcome to the Medellin cartel.
He was known as the Lord of the Skies. And my partner and I were able to develop the first warrant on him. And that was out of Juarez, Mexico, when I was assigned to El Paso, Texas.
Next was Myanmar, tasked with arresting the man then responsible for 80% of the heroin that arrived in the U.S.
The Kunsa Shan United Army, the Chang Chi Fu opium warlord empire, 17,000 drug insurgents, was taken down over the course of 2 months with strategic applications of this incredible group.
Eddie says that in order to get in good with these kinds of guys, you have to give a bit of yourself.
I think call it junctures. You get to a juncture and there's more trust. You get to the next one, there's more trust. So when you convince these people to sell you whatever it is, whatever the contract may be, it could be murder for hire, drugs, any vice, weapons, corruption, whatever. When you get to that juncture and they look you in the eyes and they trust you like a brother, then you're in. Then there's no limit to what you can do.
Except when it comes to your personal life.
With all the major, crazy, insane professional satisfaction and success I had in taking down, basically being part of 4 kingpins' demise, there is a toll on you. And it never does allow for that stability that's necessary. They said in the Marine Corps, when I first jumped into this trade, if the Corps wanted you to have a wife, they'd issue you one, right? And they meant it. And that just kind of carried through implicitly throughout my career. And the times that I didn't work out so well. And it's wholly attributed to me on my side. So there's a price to be paid for anything.
Eddie has written a book, consulted on Hollywood films.
I thought Dennis was a creature who's the lateral thinker who manages all these different worlds.
That's why you need Dennis.
And is working on an upcoming TV series. His incredible story is getting renewed attention through another Hollywood heavy hitter. Ed O'Neill, best known for his roles as Al Bundy in Married with Children and Jay Pritchett in Modern Family, has started a podcast called The Undercovers.
A drug deal is about to go down. 2 kilos of Southeast Asian number 4 heroin, right here in the middle of the park, in the middle of the day.
The first season is a sequencing of my life throughout the beginning, fundamentally to the day that I left and parked my badge at DEA.
When Eddie looks back at his career, he realizes he got there and stayed there by following some key rules, like keeping your first name and only changing your last name.
Maybe there's dope, drugs, people, arrests coming your way. And somebody may just say, Eddie, and you're gonna turn reflexively. You're not gonna be able to help yourself. But it's okay if the bad guy knows you as Eddie, right?
Or paying with fake credit cards.
Like in the beginning, I'd always carry credit cards that were canceled out in my name. So then I was out with the crooks that paid for a meal. I'm sorry, sir, this one's over limit. Oh, sorry, sir. That's what real crooks do.
And of course, looking the part.
It doesn't matter what the reality is, it's their perception of reality that can get you killed. And you have to control their perception of reality. That's the greatest undercover trick there is. Their reality is the perception of you. It's not the actual reality. That's the trick.
For a career intense enough to make anyone wince, Eddie is grateful, especially to still be alive.
It is just incredible to wake up every morning and just be happy to be at the party.
All right. Yep. Let me know when you want to change the
Yes, sir.
slides.
So, first of all, thank you. You came here tonight to pay, right? You did? To listen to us, and I want to thank you, my heart and soul. I want to give total homage to the greatest undercovers, Joe Pistone and Billy Queen, and federal law enforcement. I'm going to talk a little about what undercover and law enforcement is. It's not what you see on TV. It has nothing to do with what your perception may be. What does an undercover do? He gathers evidence. For one day, he has to testify for that. Everything he does, chronicled, put into a specific, definitive, recorded event. That one day, before, tell me when 3 minutes are up. I'm not good at this, okay? And after doing that, like under the most duress of circumstances, especially long term, like he did, Joe Pistone did, and I did overseas in so many places, you have to recollect everything you did and put it against what you wrote, and then go to court. See, nobody likes court. Nobody wants to testify. Because when you're in court, everybody's a badass. Sorry for my language. Everybody's a tough guy till they go to court. And you got to sit there, and a judge and a defense attorney, and they're hammering you. And you've been out 1-2 years overseas with the Mongols. 2 years. Joe, 7 years. Pistone. Right? And now you got to attribute all that you wrote down. And lives are in the balance. So the first mission of an undercover, everybody, I'm sorry if I'm being a little, I got very few time with you, right? And you deserve the best, so I'm going to try to give it to you, is you gather intelligence. Forget that. That leads you. It's evidence. And what you write down, What you have is what goes to court. Court's a whole different scene, right? You guys know this. You've seen it, right? Everybody's a tough guy till they get to court. So number one, Undercover's mission is to be an evidence gatherer of the utmost integrity. Because you're gonna be testifying. Everybody's a tough guy till they get on the stand. That's one. Two, when you're undercover, why? I don't know. It's a stupid Marine. Came out, criminal investigator, right? Transferred to DEA. I was there for 3 years. And it's like, undercover. Wow, what's that all about, right? So when you get into that, you have to realize that you're sharing. When you get engaged with these people, not as simple, hey, I'm going to go meet you tonight and buy an ounce of Coke. And you go to jail for 10 years or 5 years, whatever. Or I'm going to go over and meet you and buy a couple guns. Okay, you go to jail. When you have the long-term, penetrative, extraordinary undercover that he and Joe Pistone and I tried to do, you get involved with their lives, right? And when you get involved with their lives, you get involved with their families and with them and their memories and all the other stuff. Joe Pistone told me when I started all this, he said, look, you have three mistresses, three mistresses when you do this stuff, to put the real bad guys away forever. One, first, your family, right? Your mom, your wife, your kids. That's number one. Number two are the idiot bureaucrats that monitor you. They have no idea. They don't. Never been there. That's your second mistress you have to appease, right? And then third, them, the bad guys, right? I don't know if that's the right word. Trifurcated? I know bifurcated, but trifurcated, right? Right? And you got to live with that. I didn't get that till Joe explained it to me. But I did it all those years in Los Angeles with him, and also, in Thailand, Burma, Laos for 4.5 years, and then down to Mexico. I didn't know what was going on there. And then over to Afghanistan, Pakistan, and back and forth. You're giving a piece of yourself to them, and the whole time being authentic and genuine, but they believe you. But why? Why do you do it? For something much higher than you. I could never have done it. I'm just a stupid Catholic boy. Grade school, high school, college, and that, right? And now you go into that, and now you got to pretend, propose yourself as something you don't even know. You can't teach it, guys. You can't teach undercover. It's got to be something that happens, I don't know, genetically or something, but you can't do it. You are that. I never thought in a million years, altar boy, all that stuff, that I could do this and take down the biggest, baddest, murderous sons of bitches who fund Al-Qaeda and fund insurrections and everything that's bad against what we are as Americans. So when I good, sorry. Okay.
Do you want me to change that?
Yeah, leave it there. So when I finally got out, right, and when I did, I woke up one day and my friend called me and said, look what Malcolm, you know Malcolm Gladwell probably, very prominent author. So he picked my book up one weekend and he read it. And Malcolm sums up everything about who I am, and I couldn't even describe myself like he did. But that's what he's a master of, right? That's what Malcolm Gladwell does. And he said, the former DA agent Edward Follis describes his target as awe and intimacy. What does that tell you? Huh? That means that you have to be that close with these people to convince them. Because when you talk to them and you bring it there, you convince them to give their lives up. Right? So then you do it for your country, for your Constitution, for who you are as a servant of the government. There's that. Number two. We don't have limited time, so I can't go, I'm trying my best to do the best I can. This today, undercover. Deep undercover now has been compromised and beaten by electrons. Know in your hearts and souls Electrons live forever, and they can penetrate any environment you live. So these relationships that lead to big seizures and extraditions and life sentences and debilitation and beheading of these narco-terrorists, like the most horrible people you can imagine. You guys are like, you just can't imagine what they will do. Money. All money, 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 money. So you step into their world and you're with them. Many nights in the jungles of Peru with my brother, who's deceased, we would go and infiltrate these organizations. Like you know, you're in a jungle, and we develop the evidence and take it back to Bangkok and fly to New York and submit that to a grand jury in New York of people like us, just, you know, common people. And go back with the arrest warrant and grab them all and take them out. Same in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Mexico. See, you guys, we believe in the order of law, the republic. We're all about law. We don't go out and just annihilate. We develop a case and go before juries of people and then testify about that in places that they can't understand. And then put them away lawfully under the rule of law. The rule of law is what makes us as Americans. Let's face it, right now. Without the rule of law, we're not a republic. And that's what knuckleheads like us do. We go out, we generate the evidence under the rule of law. Can you imagine? Chain of custody, you know, recordings, all that stuff. And, you know, you're like barely living in Thailand or Mexico or Afghanistan. And we bring that back, and then we have a judge who's hard on us and says, that's true, you did that. This guy did this, violated the law. And we move forward. And they're hard. They're hard. So what's happening today? Technology. Technology. There's not, I believe, this is my own commentary, anything in your life that's safe from electron intrusion. Electrons own the world, they own the universe, physics say it, and the government uses it. So why an undercover? Why? Develop a relationship and develop a case to put somebody and bring them out of that leadership role. Narco-terrorism, political terrorism, guns, whatever it may be, all over the place, right? Why? Because only this mouth can look at a jury and say, that happened. My reputation is here. I've sworn that that's what's going on. That's removing. It's going away. Technology is removing the need for federal agents like us to step in. But it won't work in court, right? As long as we have a republic and you have to testify before a jury, peers of your own, it's not going to work. So technology is replacing, you know, guys like us, guys like me, right? Because now, but it doesn't work, right? If you're going to have a lawful republic, it's not going to work. You still need knuckleheads to go in and make it happen and then testify to it. You guys already know about AI and manipulation of electrons and all that kind of stuff. But you're never going to replace the guy on the ground that engages. That's two. Go next slide, please.
Yeah, let's go through these quickly.
Okay, so that's Billy Queen, this guy here, 1989, I think. Billy orchestrated this enormous undercover operation with a figure who, I called him Rutger Hauer. You know that guy, the actor? Blue eyes, cold steel. You know? So he approached him and he wanted to buy an enormous amount of weapons to use in Thailand with their insurrection in exchange for 70 units of heroin. I was a baby. He brought me in, and that's Billy there. This would, ladies and gentlemen, this would never happen in this world again. The U.S. Army gave Billy all this like incredible armament. It's called a flash roll. Like This is who I am. There it is. Let's go. So we met with Rutger Hauer. I mean, he was like, yeah, everything you can imagine. And so we flashed him that for the advancement of the case. Please, next. And that's a man pad there, you know, that's like a Stinger. You know, that's what you shoot down, you know, planes. We recovered many when I was in Afghanistan on bounties. Man pads, man-portable, anti-aircraft system, you know? And we brought that out to this guy. It was done, right? Well, sophistication and so forth, he compromised us at the end with his own intelligence network. So anyway, that was Billy and me back in 1987, right? But this will never happen again. So next one, please. So I got to accelerate, I know. Where are we? Okay, so I decided to go to Afghanistan against everybody's wishes. You know, I'm the only idiot that, you know, volunteered to go to Afghanistan. And when I did, you know, I told my family I'm going there for one reason, right? Osama bin Laden. That was it. A place called Quetta in Pakistan where all the Taliban started, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? But that's where he went, and he agreed to pay the Taliban as much money as they needed to push through 911 and thereafter. So, you know, I was like, you're an idiot. Well, nothing new here. What are you doing? You're going to kill your career. Yeah. So I went to Afghanistan for 3 years. And when we did, we were able to render, which is a judicial proceeding where we brought back 26 of they weren't all narco-terrorists, but they certainly were terrorists that were moving toward us in the United States. Some of Mullah Omar's and other people that, and Haji Jumakan. Next, please. Him. That guy right there. And you know, like there's a lot in your life I wouldn't understand. Or big deals that you got, right? That you do in your own practice or whatever you do. I don't know that. But I'll tell you, that guy identified as the world's biggest opium and heroin dealer. The biggest. And he was funneling, we captured laptops at the border, it's too long to go into, where his money was funneling Taliban and Al-Qaeda. So he was put on the kinetic list. That means that the military was going to put a warhead to his forehead. So I had 60 days to work him, and I convinced him to meet me in Jakarta. Where? In Jakarta, that was the end of him, right? Arrested forever, right? More drama thereafter. Bottom line is, not unconventional, but the methodology of how many DEA undercovers are able to work within the world of confusion, bureaucracy, and impairment. We're able to work through that and get into it. And I took him from Jakarta back to New York, and then, he did 14 years. He was sentenced to life, and $100 million. Think about this. I mean, fuck, I can barely make a mortgage sometimes. $100 million he gave to the Taliban and ISIS. All right? And all that means what's assembled against our guys over there, right? 5,624 guys were killed, our guys, in Afghanistan. And he'll fund it, right? So I had no issues. After 14 years, there's complications. He was returned back. But that's the avenues of approach that our federal agents can do and make happen. Now, and number 3, and I'll be done. Listen, I'm not here to cry. I'm not a crybaby. I'm not. But there is a toll, right? And there's something that a lot of UCs talk about. But you develop relationships with these people, all of them, throughout the years. And they go away for 29 years or life, right? That's not just a relationship like you and I become friends tonight. And we work for a year or so, and then you go to jail for 30 years. Right? Like Joe Pistone told me, you have 3 mistresses, and you have to separate them. And the last one are the bad guys. So when that happens, and you're older like me, and you look around, and these guys are serving life for 30 years, or, I mean, they're really like bad guys, right? These are not like, you know, oh, they stole something from Walgreens or something, you know? And then it settles in you, because you have to give a little bit of you to them to make this work. They're not stupid. So when you give that to them, and they have it, and they hold it, right? You just don't step away, because none of us are sociopaths, right? We do this for our country, for our Constitution. There's no money in it. We do it for that. And that is a toll on your soul, right?
Thank you, Eddie.
But we do it for our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Billy, why don't you go? You want to start with the video, or do you want to set it up?
I think you've heard about enough, right? Thanks for coming. Okay, go ahead. You can start the video. And this video is here just to show you what the organization is about that I infiltrated, and this is just one. Eddie and I worked together on some of the most sophisticated undercover operations the United States government has ever done. You'll see pictures of this organization that I went undercover on, the last undercover operation that I did. This is what I looked like before all this undercover stuff ever happened, you know? This is exactly what happened to you. Well, I was also with ATF SRT team out of Los Angeles. We had places all over. This picture that you're looking at right here, I was actually riding with the Hells Angels when I was asked by agents in Los Angeles if I would come over and ride with the Mongols, because the Mongols were a lot more violent organization in Los Angeles. That was the grave site of 2 Mongols that were killed out on the 15 freeway. Wow. And I don't know where all you folks are from, but you might know a lot of what happened, where these things happened in the Los Angeles area. But this went all over the United States. And these are some of the guys in the club. If you'll notice, almost every picture, if you'll look, somebody's got a gun. One of the things that was required for me to become a full-patch Mongol, and I'll go ahead and show you this. These are the colors that I wore for more than 2 years riding with the Mongols. They murdered people, they raped women, and they beat people from one end of this country to the other. This was very concerning to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. We didn't think that we'd be able to last long, because my line in the sand was murder and rape. I wasn't going to kill anybody for this club. I certainly wasn't going to participate in a rape situation. And that kind of stuff goes on in the outlaw biker world all the time. We were hoping that we would get next to the Mongols and buy guns from them, or buy dope from them, and arrest them for things that we could prove in a couple of months. A couple of months turned into more than 2 years. That picture that you just saw, the other guy, this is another picture of me as going along here. The other guy was a prospect with me at the time in that club. They made him put a gun to his head. They took all the bullets out of a revolver except for one, because he wanted out of the gang. They made him put the gun to his head and pull the trigger. If he didn't blow his brains out, they were going to let him out of the club. And I was thinking, well, hell, he's out of the club too if he blows his brains out, you know. This is Billy over to the right here with another group of Mongols. What I look like, that's Billy standing in the midst of all these Mongols at that particular point. And let me make this clear. These are my buddies. This guy right here next to me, I put his arm. We had to stop him from killing his sister and her children. We had to put a halt on what we were doing because she had called the cops on him on a child molestation thing, and he was going to kill her. And he's telling me, Billy, when I leave here, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to kill her. But before I kill her, I'm going to slit the throats of her 2 children so that she'll feel the pain before I kill her. And I'm in there with this guy. Now, what are you going to do? He's going to leave and go kill his sister. So we basically had to stop and put people on him to pick him up for some reason to keep him from killing his sister and her 2 children. I know that we're going through this right now. If you'll see this property of these females that are in the gang, and it's a little hard to see, but if you look on the left side of the flag, you'll see something hanging down right there. That's a guy's scalp. And if you also see this guy right here, has got skull and bones patch on there. He got those skull and bones for killing for the club. And all those patches mean something. And I'm wanting you to see this. That's Billy on the left. And that's that was out in Florida. And that's me on the left with an outlaw out of Florida. The outlaws and the Mongols got along together. These are the funerals that I went to, because the outlaw biker gang life is tough. I went to probably a dozen funerals. The guys killing themselves, and I thought myself I was going to end up dying by accident. And I'll get into that a little bit too. This is another one of the funerals. That was a national president at the time. He throws the first load of dirt on the guy, and everybody else throws dirt on him. Me toward the end in Daytona. That's where I got arrested out in Santa Clarita. And toward the end of the investigation, we arrested 54 of them. We sent 53 of them to prison for murder, to running dope and guns and everything else that they were doing. So that's what I did. Now, I had worked undercover operations for 17 of my 20 years with the Bureau of ATF. Some of those operations I worked with Ed here, and like I said, some of the most sophisticated undercover operations that the government's ever done. But this one took more out of me than any of the undercover operations that I had ever done. Because I'll tell you this, I did go in thinking I'd be in with this gang for 2 months. And as a result of being in for 2 years and 2 months, I completely lost everything that I had. I lost my wife, I lost my children, I lost my personal life. I had to hide for years to keep these guys from killing me. And to be honest with you, I'm a little concerned about being here tonight. Because these guys,
back there?
It would be a major feather in their hat if they could put a bullet through Billy Queen. So that's what I live with. I didn't count on that. This was an investigation that the federal government had not done up until this point. We had no idea. But after a certain period of time, when I began to gather evidence that we're going to send these guys to jail, anywhere from 10 years to life in prison, once I had gathered that information, things changed. That means these guys had a lot to lose if they found out Billy Queen was actually a federal agent that put a bullet through me in a minute. But let me say this, and you may ask yourselves, why would people, why would they join an organization like this, a violent criminal organization like this? Well, now listen, I'm a Vietnam veteran myself, and we had a We had a brotherhood. When you go to war, you pick up a gun and you go to war, and if you get out alive, it's not because you're the biggest and baddest dude out there on the battlefield. It's because of your brothers out there. I'm going to add a little bit in there. When I joined the United States Army, I wanted to save the world, and I thought I could. I'm a young guy right out of high school. That's what I'm going to do. There's a war going on in Vietnam. I'm going to join. I'm going to volunteer, and I'm going to go. I don't mind telling you, it went from I want to save the world to when I got there, I wanted to save my ass and get home. But as a result, I got to learn what it was like to actually live the life of a gangster. I lived with their families. They lived with me. At one minute, I loved them. The next minute, I wanted to kill them. And there's no doubt that the gangster life is going to be handed down to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next generation. Where you go and you talk about with your kids or grandkids, make good grades in school. You know, be a good person and stuff. They're teaching their kids, if you get picked up and go to jail, this is the jail you want to go to. You don't want to go to this jail over here. You know, this is what they're teaching their kids. And I could be in love with them one day, and the next day, I would walk into the yard with one of these guys and I'd meet their kids. Like you would meet your kids or grandkids and stuff. Hey, little Rocky, how you doing, buddy? And Rocky, the Mongol, would tell me, yeah, it's his birthday today. And it'd be like, cool. Billy Queen would come out. Cool, we're gonna have a party? We're gonna have a birthday party? Nah, I ain't got the money. We'll have a party later on and shit while they're there smoking their dope and stuff. And I would look at him and think, you son of a bitch. That little boy's not going to have a birthday? Bullshit. I'd call time out, get on my motorcycle, ride up to a Kmart or something, and I'd buy something for that little kid. And I'd give it to him because that was the only thing he was going to get for his birthday. And they didn't give a shit. Pardon me. They didn't care. So I could look at him and say, I know. This is just the next generation that's coming on. You're teaching your children how to be a good person, obey the laws. They're teaching their kids how to be the next generation of criminals coming up. It was kind of hard to deal with that. I've been a cop or a soldier all my life. When I got involved in this undercover operation, I had to stand there while they beat people. Now listen, you're going to do exactly what they're going to do. If you think that you're going to be an undercover agent and you're going to go in on a violent organization like this and not be just like them, they're going to see right through you. They're going to say, when they start beating people and you're not in there beating people with them, when it's all over with, you're going to have to answer questions. Where the hell were you? How come you weren't inside beating people? You're going to have to answer that. And they're going to start looking at you and you're not going to make it. If you don't act just like them, you're not going to get the colors. You're not going to become a Mongol. It was a real hard pill to swallow, being involved in a violent world like that where you came up and you would never let that happen. I was a police officer in High Point, North Carolina. I was a United States Border Patrol agent. I was an agent with ATF. And now I'm inside watching these people commit and participating in some of the violent activity. You're either going to do it or you're out. You got to make up your mind. Now, I went early on to the United States Attorney's Office and I said, I need guidance here. These people are beating people up. They're selling their dope or stealing people's motorcycles and stuff. All of this stuff is going on. I said, I need some guidance. How far can I go? What can I do? And in downtown Los Angeles, the U.S. Attorney's Office, 2 U.S. attorneys, assistant U.S. attorneys, sitting across the desk, and they're doing this. Na, 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 na. That's when I made my own line in the sand. I'll do what I got to do to get in. And my line in the sand was that murder and that rape. And I stood with these people on multiple occasions in armed robberies. And when we got the guns out, and they were taking people's money because they didn't pay up for the drugs and stuff, they wanted to kill them. You ain't gonna pay me? I'm gonna fucking kill you. That was the bottom line. And when I was standing there with them with my gun out, I'm praying to God, oh God, just give him your money, buddy. Just give him your money. Just give him your money. And lucky for me, they would get what they wanted. But when I went home, went back to my undercover pad, I dropped down to my knees and say, oh God, I can't believe I got away with that. Oh God, I can't believe I got away with that. In our chapter, I belong to the San Fernando Valley chapter in Los Angeles area. How many people are from California out here? Yeah, so you may know exactly what I'm talking about. San Fernando Valley. Well, I was riding with the San Fernando chapter of the Hells Angels when they asked me to ride with the Mongols. And that was a problem too. But every day I knew, I rode with the idea that if they found out, Billy, they're going to blow you away. Make no mistake about it. They're going to kill you. And I dealt with that every day. When 2 years went by, had enough. They had murdered people. They had raped women. We were able to skirt it. We were stealing motorcycles. I was stealing motorcycles right along the side of them and stuff. We were beating people up. I was beating on people right along with them. And when it went to court, like Eddie was talking earlier, yeah, there's going to be a day in court. You beat people too, didn't you, Agent Queen? Yeah, but if I wasn't in there and put my arms around this guy's head and stuff, they would have beat him in. They would have beat him to death had I not been there. Oh, object, object. So that's the world of an undercover agent. If you make a mistake, it's not like a regular job. You make a mistake out here, it may cost you money. You make a mistake undercover like that, it's going to cost you your life. And like I said, I did not figure into it that I was going to have to deal with it for the rest of my life. The longer I was under, the more I lost. I had 2 children at the time that were 9 and 10 years old. By the time it was over with, they were gone. And at the end, and I would keep telling myself, Billy, you'll go back to being a regular agent. Billy, you'll go back to being a father again. You'll go back to, life will be normal again. But it never was. It never got back to normal. The day the whole operation went down, Washington, D.C. comes out. They hand me a wallet in the C-Mart, downtown Los Angeles, command center down there, and said, here's your new life. You're going to go to Plano, Texas, and you're going to hide out in Plano, Texas. Your children, and now your ex-wife, we're going to put them in Miami, Florida. Wait a minute. What about my life with my kids? We're sorry, buddy. We want to keep everybody alive. We're going to send you to see your children. We're going to put you on a plane to see your kids. We're going to take your kids and fly them out to Plano, Texas. For 2 years that went by, I got to see my kids one time. They sent me from there to Charlotte, North Carolina. I never had a life with my kids again up until here recently, where they understood what happened. The very worst, watching your brothers dying, doing what I did. Sometimes the best you can do ain't good enough. And the bad guys will kill you. And throughout my career, I watched my friends go out the door and go to their death, trying to do what undercover agents have done. But that is a life, and you're going to tell yourself, oh, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to let that happen. But sometimes the best that you can do is just not good enough. But at that point with riding with the Mongols, I knew that every day. I would look at their faces the way that they were looking at me. And if they had a raised eye or they were saying something different, oh, Billy, we want to talk to you out back. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. And did I have a gun pointed at my head and them accusing me of being a law enforcement agent? Oh, yeah. With a gun to my head with them telling me, so if I blow your brains out, nobody's going to know where to start looking for you, right? And I got myself in situations like that where the only thing I could say was, yeah, you're right. I didn't have a gun. I'm standing there with 8 armed Mongols out in the middle of nowhere. And if they made me, they were going to kill me there. And there was nothing that I could do about it. But I lucked out. I played the game well enough to come out alive. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not the undercover guru. If there is an undercover guru, then it's Joe Pistone.
Yes, Fred.
But for me, I made it through. When I said, oh God, don't let this happen. Oh God, don't let this happen. I meant it. So I got through, not because I was the undercover guru, but because I had an angel sitting on my shoulder. The outlaw biker gang world is violent, dirty, and this is some of the things that were done. I would talk individually with you if you wanted me to, but to express to you, to tell you all the nasty, dirty, violent stuff that happened, I can't. It would be embarrassing for me to stand up here and tell you that I participated in that, but I did. We'll have a question and answer. If I can answer those questions for you, I will. But that was my experience riding with the Mongols. And like I said, I had the opportunity of working with Ed Follis when he was a kid. Just right out of the Marine Corps. We all bet there's no way that dude's going to live. We had a thing going in the office. Hey, he ain't going to live. He'll be one of the dudes they killed. But here we are today, and we joke about it. We joke about it, but boy, he did a good job too, and he's still here. And listen, thank you so much for attending and listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Billy.
Outstanding, brother.
So
Great job.
we've had some real highs and some real lows over the past hour, and I want to give everybody a chance to say what they'd like to say if they have something further, but let's do that in the context of the questions from the audience, because I'd like to open it up now for you to ask some questions of our panel. And the way we do this is we have a microphone, because we want to record. We want our recording to be able to pick up your question. Okay, so if you can raise your hand,
Great, Billy.
Shakayla or one of our other persons will come around and bring you the microphone. So there we go. You can start back here.
So how good were you at riding motorcycles before you joined, and where did you get your motorcycle?
I heard how much was I into motorcycles before this. I grew up on a motorcycle. I knew all about it, and it's one thing that you're going to have to know. You're going to have to know the motorcycle world. You're going to have to know about motorcycles, and so I grew up on them. So I had a lot of knowledge about that, and I had worked the outlaw biker world for some time with ATF. But yeah, I grew up on a bike.
Okay. Next question.
Yeah, how'd you make the transition from Hell's Angel to Mongol?
Yeah, that was a problem. because I was riding for the IRS, and ATF had teamed up with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, and they went after the Ventura chapter of the Hells Angels. And I had worked a lot of undercover stuff, and they came to me, ATF agents came to me and said, will you give a shot at riding with the Hells Angels? This is where they are and stuff. And I jumped on the bike like a less than highly intelligent person, agreed to do it, and started riding with them, the Ventura chapter of the Hells Angels, who hung out in the Valley area in Los Angeles. And I was riding with them. When John Zaccone, the case agent with ATF, came to me because the Mongols had gone down to the Hollywood area on Hollywood Boulevard and stuff. They're going in the clubs down there, the dance clubs and stuff, and they were going in there and beating people. And they had killed, they stabbed people on Hollywood Boulevard, and they killed a homeless guy in Pasadena. In a gunfight between two clubs at that time, they didn't find the dead guy until next morning. After the shootout, the bullets are flying, the cops all come in, everybody runs, gets away, nobody wants to go to jail. All the bikers, they take off and run. Next morning when the sun comes up, there's a dead guy across the street. One of a stray bullet hit one of the homeless guys over there. So LA had enough, and they went to the ATF and said, we need help. The Mongols are just killing us. Tourist industry's going to crap because everybody's afraid to go up to Hollywood Boulevard. So it was call Billy Queen, see if he can go ahead.
They have a mandate, right?
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure how I asked this. First of all, for thank you, and then second of all, for saving our country, thank you. Did y'all know that you would have that, how to put this, lose your families or not see your families? Like, did you know that when you guys decided to go undercover? That it would be that, I don't know, tough?
You know, we've talked among ourselves, like with Joe Pistone and that, and it's really bizarre. Like, I don't think I can articulate it properly. Like, I'm afraid, like, you know, of going broke. It's never going to happen, right? But I mean, take care of my mom and, you know, family and my dog, my wife and all that, right? So the little stuff, right? You know, you keep your bills right, proper, you know, right? That's the stuff. But what we did, there's not a second thought. I mean, I'd be gone for like 18 months doing work. It's like nothing. It's a weird psychology that I can't express to you guys. But even Joe said, undercovers, and it's not like a great class of folks, okay? Mostly they're living in a life later in years that's not all that great because they give everything. But, you know, undercovers are born. I believe this genetically. I don't believe, like, it's unnatural to put yourself in that way. And then after you develop these deep relationships with kingpins, and you go back and you testify against them, right? But you're not that way in real life. Or maybe you are. I don't know. I ain't figured that out yet. Right? But in your life with your family, your mom, your dad, your dog, blah, 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 it's that way. And it's not, there's no inclination or pulse of don't do it. Go anywhere, do anything, go away, whatever. And then you get home and you're just a natural guy with your family. I don't get it. Joe does it better than I do to explain that. I don't know. I think undercovers are born. They're not developed. Everybody wants to be one, but very few will go there. And you just happen to be there. Don't get it, guys. I don't get it. But the ones that are, we're very close brotherhood. And most of what we talk about is not, it's unsaid. It's just that.
Herman, why don't you take a shot at this one? Do you have the...
Oh, yeah. I've been married 8 times. No, I'm just kidding. No, next November it'll be 53 years. Yeah. I think I lost again. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So, I never went undercover with an outlawed microgroup. I'll never go undercover with enough. I mean, you got to live the life to do that. But anyway, fortunately, the undercover operation, the kind of undercover operations that I got involved in, were very intensive, and occasionally, depending on the operation, I'd be gone for several days at a time, maybe 4 or 5 days, maybe 2 weeks, to do my thing with the bad guys. And I always had a backup plan, like, I got to go down to Florida to check on my property down there. And of course, they thought I was going down to do a dope deal or something. And actually, I was going home. And I'd spend quality time with my family. And you know, it's an interesting thing, because these guys had said, you know, when you're living the life with these guys, you know, you're in it 100%. I mean, there's no 80% to this thing. And it's very, very intense. You sleep it, you talk about it, you think about it. And then when you come home, you know, honey, the garbage needs to go out. It's like, I'm a gangster. You know, wait a minute, I don't take the garbage out. You might be a gangster there, but the garbage has got to go out. So it's an interesting thing, and but I never got into one of these groups. I was only in with the Mafia, so. And they have their own set of rules, but they're a little more mature than the Mongols. But they are ruthless. And you talk about masters of deception. Those wise guys, and I was talking with Frank out here, who was in the family, and wise guys live on the streets, they grow up on the streets, they know the streets, and they know people, and they know personalities, and they know how to I mean, I'd be sitting in meetings with some of these wise guys, and they're all bad guys. I mean, they'd, you know, committed murders, and they were made guys, and that sort of thing. And I'm just sitting there kind of hanging out with them. Somebody come in, talk to us, do something. They'd leave, and they would say, they'd analyze it. Do you see that guy? Do you see the way he looked when I said something? Yeah, I did notice that. And they would analyze this thing. These guys were masters at it. So you always had to be on guard, obviously. And you always had to have scenarios prepared in your mind, like, if this happens, what am I going to do? What's my reaction going to be? And one of those happened to me when I was undercover here. And, excuse me. So I'm running around with these guys. We had this, kind of like if you saw The Sopranos, kind of a bada bing club. And the FBI ran it, but through, excuse me, we had Big Fat Tony kind of, you know, making the food and doing this and doing that, but it was an FBI operation. So we would sit around every day and meet. So one day, the underboss, Carmelanos, wanted to go over and meet with one of the head Teamsters here. And he said, I want you to go, let's go. What happened previous to that is that one of the people that was just kind of a peripheral sort of a guy, he had a nickname, Shorty. And a lot of times you deal with these people, and you don't pick up their full name, so you don't really know who you're dealing with. And typically, in a deep undercover operation, at least with the FBI, you don't work in the town where you live. And because of certain circumstances with a former undercover agent that was assigned to this operation, I was selected to kind of usher this thing to the point where we could bring in another undercover agent, and then I'd kind of fade away and let him take it over. Well, that never happened. I just continued to be successful on this thing. So I couldn't get out. But in the meantime, my family lives here. So I had to have an undercover apartment. I had to have a switch car at that undercover apartment. When I would leave, I would go to that undercover apartment and make phone calls, do whatever I needed to do. And then I'd wait an appropriate time to make sure that there wasn't a counter surveillance on, because these guys are always suspicious. They're always looking at you. And then I'd get into my switch car. I'd clean myself up with taking circuitous routes, and then eventually I'd make it home. And so that was my routine. And we live way out in the far northwest. We still live there. And we have horses. So one of these days, I think it was on a weekend or something, I was on a horse with my wife, and we're out gallivanting around the neighborhood. And apparently, this guy, Shorty, that I had bought some stolen cars from, just happened to drive by. I didn't see him, but he saw me. So he goes to the mob guys, and basically his message is, you know that guy, Sonny? Yeah, you know where he lives? Yeah, he's got some apartment over here or whatever. And well, I don't know, man. I saw him, he's driving down this road, and I think he lives at this other location. I saw him with this woman. He describes the situation. So because of Tony, I was aware of this. So now I'm thinking, geez, what do I do with this? So we had another informant, and this guy Shorty is not getting the feedback that he expected, from these mob guys. And so he goes to this other informant, and he relates his story. And so the informant calls me up, and he said, hey, Sonny, he explains this thing to me. So now I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So in the Bureau, when you're deep undercover, you have a contact agent who meets you, you sign reports, he gives you the items, he gives you the money, you debrief them, and so forth. And it's a very clandestine kind of a thing. And so I tell this guy, Steve, I said, he happened to know where I live. I said, Steve, you know where I live, right? He says, yeah. I said, I want you to get Shorty. I want you to put him in the car, and I want you to drive to my house, and I want you to come up and knock on the door. And he says, are you insane? I said, no, I want you to do that. Now, my wife, I've always been able to keep her out of these operations. I mean, that was an area that I just never crossed. I just never allowed myself or allowed her to interact in any way, shape, or form on this thing. And I think you guys can appreciate that. But this was different. So I called my contact agent, and I said, get over to my house right away. I only have a few minutes to kind of put this together. And he gets over, and I said, listen, my undercover story was to Carmen Milano when I was confronted with this thing. I got this woman I met. She's married to this big shot attorney, and they live in this house out here. I'm banging her on the side. What do you want? I mean, so what? And they're going, yeah, that's what we figured, something like that. But it was very thin. It wouldn't hold up to real scrutiny, and I knew that. So I had to kind of put a nail in the coffin here. And so I told this guy, Steve, I said, bring Shorty to my house. In the meantime, I call my contact agent. His name is Carl. And I get him over there, and I said, Carl, I explained to him very quickly what's going on. And I said, here's the deal. This woman over here, she's married to a big shot attorney, and you're the big shot attorney, and she's cheating on you, and my wife's going, what the hell are you, have you gone friggin' insane? I'm going, yeah, just trust me, I got to do this like in a half hour. And then she's going, So I said, so there's going to be somebody come to the door. When they ring the doorbell, you open the door, Carl, and basically, I want you to say, through the conversation, I'm a big shot attorney, and I'm gone all the time, and I think my wife's banging this other guy. No, not that part. So it's very common. And my wife is just going, this is nuts. You said you would never do anything. I said, So they do. He shows up, the undercover story goes down. Now this guy, Shorty, is completely confused, and I am too. My wife is confused. But it all kind of jives. But I know that things are not going to work out because it just wouldn't survive any true scrutiny. But I'm into this thing up to my neck. And this case was as many FBI cases and federal cases do, they overlap in different jurisdictions. We had subjects that had developed in Cleveland, in LA, and other areas where other FBI officers were involved in these cases with these other people. And so it was like a house of cards. So if my cover was blown, it would just spin out of control and so forth. So we couldn't let that happen. So eventually I get on the phone with FBI headquarters, and backing up just a little bit, because we had the Bada Bing Club. Now the bad guys are sitting around and they're talking, and I had to take off for a few days, so I'm going to Florida to do a dope deal is what they thought. And this guy, Caruso, was very jealous of my relationship with Carmen Milano. And these guys do this, you know. Carmen liked me, and I had deep pockets, and I mean, you know, I had a lot of money, and I was pretty free with it, and that's really what he liked about me, I think. So they're sitting around, and they're having this conversation. Now, bear in mind, this conversation is being recorded by the FBI. I'm not there. And in that conversation, this guy, Caruso, throws this thing out, because they're always conspiring. He says, "Hey, Carmen, you know that guy Sonny? Yeah, I like the kid. He's a good kid." He said, you know he's down in Florida. He says he's looking at property. He's probably down there putting together a big dope deal. He said, "Yeah, I hope not. Yeah, I told him not to do that." And he said, "So when he comes back, you know he's going to be flush with a couple $100,000. He said, "You know, I was thinking, you know, maybe what we need to do is, we know where his Gumati, his girlfriend, lives, and maybe we got to go over there and grab her and hold her, and then make him, the husband, pay some money, or maybe we could get Sonny to pay a ransom." And he's just talking wild, right? And Carmen's looking, he says, "What, are you crazy? No, that's the craziest thing I ever heard of. You know, we're not going to do anything like that. You're nuts." But it was said, and it was said on tape, and it couldn't go back. That tape ends up at FBI headquarters. Now, if you're a supervisor at FBI headquarters in the organized crime or undercover unit, the story is, well, we have an undercover agent, and there's a conspiracy being talked about why the underboss of the La Cosa Nostra out of Southern California had a conversation with one of his lieutenants about kidnapping an undercover agent's wife and holding her for ransom. And they're going, "What? No, this is, you know, because I'm not going to be the special deputy in charge or whatever if this thing goes south." So now I got a problem. So I call up the muckety-muck at FBI headquarters. I'm thinking I could put my spin on it. He says, "Yeah, I heard all about it." I said, "Well, you know, it's not as bad as you really think it is. I mean, I know they said this, but these guys basically, I know they're gangsters, but I'm minimizing everything." I said, "Yeah, you know, well, they're not that bad. They're older now, and they don't want to go to prison, and I think I'm talking a good game." He said, "Well, you know, things are going to change, you know, but okay, I get the full picture." So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I got the heat off of me for a little bit, and things will calm down. The same guys, this guy Pete and a couple of the other crew guys, went out and they killed Herbie Blitzstein. Do you remember Herbie Blitzstein? He was a Chicago gangster that lived out here, and he was involved in the loan sharking business. You probably have him in the museum here at some place. So now I'm trying to convince headquarters these guys are a bunch of old shits, and they're not going to hurt. And they go out and they murder this guy and rob him. And he's a gangster. He's another gangster. So now my world is falling apart. So as an undercover agent, I'm thinking, man, what's going to happen now? This thing is spun out of control. So the head of the office comes out, and they say to me, "Does your wife know what you're involved in here, and to what extent?" I said, They said, "They don't. She doesn't." I said, "No. What's the point in me telling her anything? You know, it's not going to change anything." They said, "Well, we're going to come out and talk to her." What they really wanted to do is, I think, they wanted to really demonstrate to her how serious this situation was. And the reason they wanted to do that is that because they wanted to yank me out of the operation, they wanted to transfer me to someplace, and then we just come up with an undercover story. I mean, I got killed or something, and that would be it. And then they'd work the case in a different direction. So anyway, they came out and they laid the spiel out to my wife. Was unbelievable. She was like, I mean, she's like General Patton. She's sitting there and she goes, yeah, I know about that stuff. And I'm looking at her like, no, she didn't know that stuff. She said, you know, we've been in Detroit, we've been here, people have threatened to kill him before and everything. And, you know, everything's going to be okay. So, well, we're going to move him. Well, she said, I'm not going to move. And they said, you're not going to move? No. You move him. If he wants to work for the FBI and continue to work for the FBI, he's got to go where you tell him to go. But I'm staying here. But I do want to tell you one thing. Every night, most nights, he comes home. He's got a gun. He knows how to defend us as a family. And I'm confident that he'll do that. So, if you move him out, knowing that I'm not moving, if one of these people come by and they shoot up the house or do whatever, somebody gets injured or killed, whose fault is it? And I'm thinking, God damn! Where the hell has this woman been? I mean, she's like a mafia guy, like I'm dealing with, right? Well, the two bosses from the FBI, they look at each... I'm sorry?
I don't know. Finish this. Go ahead and finish.
So the two bosses from the FBI look at they say, yeah, she's got a point. You know, how about this? How about you make it look like your house is for sale? We'll put a sign up there, a real estate sign. You move out of your house and then find a place to live. And when this thing all blows over, you know, you can move back in. I said, who's going to cut my lawn? They said, yeah, we're going to have somebody cut your lawn. I said, what about these horses? Yeah, we're going to have board those things, I guess. And I said, you know, I don't know how long this thing's going to go on. It might go on for a couple of years. You know, we have a certain standard of living. They said, okay, go find it. So I found a nice house, 3,000 square feet, double-gated community on a golf course. And that's where I spent the next 2 years reviewing tapes and you know, transcripts. And so I had to go into hiding for at least 2 years. I had to grow a beard, and I'm one of these guys that can't grow a beard. I mean, I look like, you know, I got poisoned from radiation down at Chernobyl. And so that was my life for 2 years. We couldn't go out, we couldn't socialize, we couldn't do anything. And then eventually the case came to a head, and everybody was arrested and went to prison. So the point is, as all of these brave men have said, you know, there is a sacrifice. There's excitement in it, there's no question about it. And there's great reward at times, but there is a personal toll that you take. And oftentimes, sadly, your family, like Billy just described, suffers horribly, and you do too as a result. But I'm happy to say that we were able to make it all work out, at least in my case. And I have to be home by 8:30.
We're almost. Well, so, I think with that story, we're going to wrap it up for tonight. Keep in mind, we have Billy has his book here, Eddie has his book here. I encourage you to get those signed and to ask another question of each of them. If you want to talk to Herm, even though he's got to be home, he might answer a question from you. And thank you all very much.
Good job, Jeff.
Right.
Nice job.